Hello and welcome to Witch on Witch. I am Brigantia, a Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew, and today I am joined by Sigrun, the pagan prepper and the universal pagan temple. We're going to get into some controversial subjects today, and we'll probably offend everyone we've ever met. But for what it's worth, these are our honest impressions, our honest thoughts, and we're trying to bring something useful to the conversation when it comes to paganism, gender roles, what is masculine, what is feminism, the natural order of things, the current toxic situation, and hopefully a better path forward in the future, because I think it's always, we have to keep coming back to how can we improve our circumstances, especially when they're in such a mess. So before we began, Sigrun, you mentioned how you wanted to bring in some astrological info on this, and I think that'd be a fantastic place to start. So
yeah, let's get started. I got some notes jotted down about astrology, because astrology is an old science. I know some people get offended when they hear the word astrology and science being brought up in the same sentence.
They'll just have to cope.
A lot of psychologists are actually bringing in astrology,
Really?
just not the sun signs, which, you know, I'm a Virgo and you're a Leo. No, it's deeper than that. It's the houses, your sun, moon, rising, Venus, Mars, Uranus, all those planets and stars make up so much, provide so much detail on a person. And as far as masculine and feminine energies go, it also provides us some information there as to why somebody might be more masculine prone or feminine prone, besides, you know, our biological sex, because I consider myself, you know, as I've gotten older and I'm a mother now, I'm a little more feminine. I wasn't raised on how to cook and clean and all that. I had to learn that on my own, embrace my own femininity. But growing up, I was a little bit of a tomboy, going hunting with my father. And while that did provide a lot of good information, it didn't suit me well as I matured into a woman and was looking for a husband. But let's look at masculine signs. Masculine signs are direct and energetic, and outer directed and strong through action. Now, the elements that we're dealing with are fire and air signs. So Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. Although the last one, Aquarius, would be the first one to argue with you about gender assignments, being the hippie of the zodiac, which is all good and well. That's their place. Feminine signs.
Everybody has a role to play.
Right. Yeah. And also that brings up a fact I learned is on a jury, you know, there's 12 people. And I was told a long time ago, oh, that's supposed to be the 12 disciples of Christ and all that jazz. But it's actually the 12 signs of the zodiac. You were supposed to have one person of each sun sign on the jury. So you have a balanced review of your case. But
I like that thought much better, because it makes so much more sense, because, you know, when you have the whole of the zodiac coming together, you have this composite, you have this, I've taken all the factors into consideration. Everything has had its say. We've had all the perspectives, and now we have come forth with this. I mean, that just is much more fair. I mean, the 12 disciples, I mean, no disrespect to our Christian brethren out there, but what exactly would they be bringing to a jury? That would really be helpful when you're actually talking about making judgments. I think it's far more useful to have those different perspectives represented, especially if you were talking about deliberations, because we look at the universe in a very different way. As you mentioned, you know, you're a Virgo, I'm a Leo. Just with the two of us here, we're going to approach life and we're going to interpret events really very differently. But when that comes together in discussion, you start seeing where things are common, where things are different, and through that you get a more nuanced perception of reality itself. So, God, I'm loving this.
Yep. All right, and on to feminine signs. Feminine signs are receptive and magnetic, self-contained, and strong through inner reserves. So those are all water and earth signs. So Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Pisces. We can look at the elements in Wicca, and they're separated the same way, where you have water in the west. That's your emotions, your intuition. The fire in the south, that's your drive, your passion. The air in the east, that's your intellect. The earth in the north, that's your grounding. And we look at these. Yes, the air, the symbol of air. In some traditions, it's the athame. In other traditions, it's the wand, but they're both masculine phallic symbols. And for Earth, you have... Yes, for Earth, you have the cauldron or the chalice, symbolizing the womb of the goddess. And the Earth, you have the fertility of the Earth. And we can look at all these elements and how they combine on our natal charts. And if you don't know how to, if you haven't looked at your natal chart, anybody that's watching, you could Google it, look at my natal chart. You could do it for free. And you can see where your planets fall in the houses. The houses line up with your astrological energy. So your first house is the house of self. You could kind of think of the aspects of Aries. In my first house, I have Sagittarius. So I have that masculine energy as my first house. But then in my 10th house, that's where my sun is. My sun in Virgo, along with my Mars, my Venus, and those are my feminine energies. So that's in your first house, that's how you present yourself to the world. That's your rising house. And that's how you're going to display yourself. And then as you mature, you might have, like I did, a bit of a tomboy phase. And when you're a child, you are your moon sign. So when I was a child, I was a Gemini. That's a masculine sign, so that's why I was a bit more of a tomboy. I was wearing Metallica t-shirts all the time. I had 28 Metallica t-shirts at one time.
Oh my God, that's a lot.
Yes, it is a lot. I'm still a big Metallica fan, and I got really into the metal thing. And then as I got older, I started to mature into my sun sign, become more feminine. And we see this these issues pop up today with gender ideology, and really people should be focusing on a more astrological based look at things. You're not going to be the same person you are when you're 15 as when you're 30.
That's just, we hope not.
Right.
That would not be a good thing.
No, yeah, it's really difficult for you to be not be a different person as you mature. I mean, there's different within different societies, especially in Japanese society, you're not considered an adult until you're at least 42. In astrology, you go through your first Saturn return when you're 29 and a half, and that's when the karma from your past life comes and kicks you in the ass. It did with me. I nearly died.
Yes. I didn't nearly die, but that was I certainly went through a spiritual and emotional and mental awakening. Not as traumatic as yours by any stretch of the imagination, but I can attest to the impact of Saturn for sure.
Right. Yeah. And your second Saturn return, right before you hit 60, is a karmic return of this life that you're in. And my husband, who I will mention in this video probably a lot because we're talking about masculine and feminine, he is, he had a really rough life growing up. But he got his second Saturn return and was benefited by it. And now he has 2 Harleys in the garage. That is his passion. He loves his Harleys.
That is awesome.
Right.
Yeah, what you've been saying it has clarified a few things in my own life. I have a Scorpio moon, and I was most definitely a very Scorpio child. And as I got older, I realized I could overpower anyone with my emotional tantrums. I absolutely could, but it didn't actually result in getting anything done. And that's when I think I did begin that journey of leaning more into the Leo energy. And of course, my ascendant is in Capricorn. And so it's very important for me to at least appear as though I have some semblance of an idea of what I'm doing at all times, and that even if I don't have a plan, we will form a plan while we are in motion, and it's going to turn out all right. So I'm seeing some things fall into place with all of this.
The more you look at your natal chart and the more you understand that deeper aspect of astrology, looking at your houses and the planets within them, the more you gain an understanding of yourself and how you are.
Well, I was going to observe, I think it's probably also a really good way to kind of look for role models or patterns of behavior in other people as well. Because, with Leo being the ruler, being very masculine, well, who else would I look to but women who have been in positions of power, queens or prime ministers, presidents, whatever, and seeing what made them successful and also what made them fail, because that would be very informative to me about what kind of energies I should draw on and at what time. So I think I think we have really not even begun to scratch the surface as pagans of all the benefits we could get from making that deeper astrological study.
Right, yeah, and then there's the what is it? Your North Node, which kind of tells you your life path of what you need to do in this life to obtain, basic happiness and all that good stuff. My North Node is in Aries, so that's a bit of a difficult one for me. And then my South Node, your South Node is what you did in a past life, and that's in Libra. So it's always going to be in opposition. And Libra, yes, I have kind of, not to be critical of Libras, but Libras are known for being a little lazy. So I can be a little lazy. I try to steer away from that, especially since my North Node is in Aries, in my 4th house, the house of home. So my goal in life is to take charge of my house and lead my house with my children, which brings us into the other gender role, which is the mother, which is very important, and that feminism has kind of degraded quite a bit. They've they'll if they hear us say this, they will get very offended, and they will say, "Oh no, we're not criticizing motherhood. No. Yes, you are. Yes, you have been, and you've been doing it for the past 50, almost 60 years now, putting down the woman that wants to stay at home and raise her children, even to the point where feminism has allowed women to basically become debt slaves, just like men. It was really a way to get women in the workforce and to tax them. Because why just tax half of the population when you could tax the other half of the population? You know what I mean?
See, there's that nasty Marxism and authoritarianism rearing its ugly head once again. It just goes to show that when people have a certain ideology, that ideology is going to manifest in every single area of life, whether it's consciously intended or not, just because that is the natural outgrowth of their ideas. And I agree with you. I think feminism have absolutely done down motherhood, and I think they have done down everything that is inherently female as being lesser, because what is it that we are told from the time we are small children? You must emulate all of these traditional male things, not only with going after careers, but also in behaviors and your mode of thinking and all these things. And I'm not going to say that we can't benefit from having an understanding of how they think and operate. We can, we do, and there are times when it is appropriate to emulate them to a certain extent. But replacing our identity with theirs, that has caused so much heartache. And I'm not usually the girl who talks about it's really wounded our feelings. I mean, anyone who knows me that knows that's not generally where I'm at with that. But I mean, in a very real and in a very deep way, it absolutely destroys the heart of a family. And to your point about turning women into debt slaves and wage slaves, men have always had to go out and work, and they've always had to provide. I mean, that is their very natural instinct. And honestly, I think that's where they're happiest, just to be real. But at the end of that work, they used to have someone to come home to who was not in that same mode, who was not having the same degree of burden, and someone who could kind of relieve their tensions. Even if it wasn't someone who fully understood their work or particularly cared about the nature of their work, there was someone who was there for them. And now there's no one to come home to who has any semblance of sanity. There's no one to come home to remind you of, okay, this is why you go out and do the thing, because of what's important and what's happening here in this house and with this family. And as a result, I mean, is it any wonder that our family structures have just been crumbling around us?
Yes, exactly. Yet, for a man to come home to a woman, the nurturer of the family, whether she has children or not, to provide a grounding sense for the stress that the man has gone through. And yes, keeping a house is stressful, but it provides, there's a saying that a man can give a woman a house, but she will turn it into a home. And she will turn the semen into a child for him to provide the next generation. And having a grounded home is so important for the development of a child. It just can't be taken away or taken for granted. That the mother is the stability, and that's why the mother goddess within any tradition in paganism is just so important. Even it's carried into Christianity, where the Virgin Mary has taken on a lot of aspects that were belonging to Isis, Osset. In Egyptian mythology, where this nurturing woman that's also very powerful, that you can pray to fix your problems, or you just cry to her and have somebody to listen to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and we also see that in Frigg. I would say that in the goddess Breed or Brigid in the Celtic pantheon. I haven't heard anyone who's worked with her say anything about how compassionate and caring she was. I'm like, well, because she's, at least to an extent, she's in mom mode, and this is what mothers do. And I suppose with the Greeks, we are a little. I don't know how necessarily Greek practitioners feel about Hera, since she has so many problems with Zeus, with him, bedroom hopping. But I suppose it would be, oh gosh, see, in the Roman, it's Hestia. I suppose Hestia would be their version of more so that kind of hearth and home feminine influence.
Right. It would be really interesting to have a Hellenic Greek practitioner to talk to. Because, we're both kind of grounded in the Norse and Egyptian. Okay, but the Greek kind of has their own type of energy. And you look at these traditional pagan values that have been passed down in the family. Of course, it has mostly left Americans and Australians, unfortunately, because we were told to forget where you came from when we immigrated over here, when our ancestors immigrated. But you see it, my husband had worked with a bunch of Greeks in Seattle for about 20 years, and he talked about their family structure. And the women sit with the women and the men sit with the men. And it's also the same in Muslim culture as well. But they have this strong bond to the mother. Same with Italians, the Spanish, the Mexicans, that they have this kind of matriarchy society where the woman just isn't, this big macho woman, but no, she's the mother figure and she runs the household. And everybody respects the mother and they defend the mother because she is the basis of stability. And the men, they're it's almost comical. They joke about Italians. If you insult their mother, it's the worst thing that you can possibly do, and they will go and fight you.
See, mom is important. And when you think about it, that old saying about the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, I believe that is 1,000% true, because women are essentially makers of people. We are the ones who transmit culture, religion, just basic human standards, how you're going to behave and how you're definitely not going to behave. I mean, this is all transmitted through mothers. And it's amazing that feminism has attacked that role as much as it has, because it is a role of tremendous power. I don't care how much power politicians have or how much a general has. None of that even compares to the power of actually forging that next generation. I mean, nothing.
Oh. Yeah, and they wanted to take that power away from women so the state could replace the mother, which is horrific on many levels. I need to protect my son and make sure that he has the values that I have to continue on to the next generation, and they're not the values of the state, because the state doesn't value health or prosperity, safety, stability. I'm I'm seeing what's going on with our energy crisis, the incoming energy crisis, and it's like they just don't care. A mother care.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, she will. And the state, they are definitely wanting to take over the role of mom, but they're also wanting to take over the role of dad. And they've done that a lot through the family courts and the child support system, saying, oh, well, dad is just really an ATM. He's there to provide money and nothing else. And so therefore the state can provide that money or force him to pay, and that's all you really need. I'm like, well, look at the crime rates, since that became a really commonplace. Any section of society, any locality where there is a pronounced absence of fathers, you're going to have all kinds of problems. It's because children really do need both. Oh, and that actually reminds me, in a high school, I took a psychology class, and our teacher said something to us that I think he'd get fired for today. He said that if, for whatever reason, you find yourself in the position of being a single mother, whether, the dude ran off on you or whether you were widowed, whatever it is, he said, make sure you have male role models nearby, interacting with the child as often as possible. Grandpa, uncles, your very close friends who are actually trustworthy. They need that. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, if he said that today, I am sure he would be marched right out the door, because that's blasphemy. That's blasphemy.
Right. It's blasphemy against the state, against the religion of the state. Yes, men are very important. I was lucky and fortunate enough to have a strong father figure who wasn't necessarily a big tough macho man, but he was a man of wisdom. He was a doctor. So he was respected, and I saw him being respected, and saw him provide guidance, and he provided guidance to me, which has led me to where I am today. And without my father, I wonder where I would be. And that's why, I emphasize protecting the male, the masculine, and encouraging that strong masculine behavior that it needs to be, nurtured, and because it's the balance to femininity. Without masculine, the feminine just takes over, and unfortunately, it does make us weak. If we have the male come in, the masculine energy, we're balanced. I hate to say it's so simple as a seesaw, but it is a seesaw. Our society is going over here with the feminine energy. Okay, yeah, that's good and well, but then we're at risk. We're at risk. We look weak to our enemies who have.
And we are.
Yeah.
We are. That's
Yeah.
the worst of it.
Yeah, who embrace masculine energy. And that was the reading I did the other day. It just shows that America needs to embrace the masculine again, whether it's, you know, falling in love again with the cowboy stereotype or whatever. It has to happen. We have to embrace men again. You know, you see all these Viking shows, Viking TV shows, you know, Death or Valhalla, you know, that it's almost a meme at this point, but they're embracing this warrior culture, this masculine culture, because they have such a lack of it around them. So they look to the past. Oh, look at these Vikings, or look at these warriors, these Roman, what would they be called? Or I can think of the Greek hoplites. There's one. Warrior culture, the Spartans, you know, they're drawn to that because they don't see it here. You know, we have our armed forces, and thank goodness for them, but it's been kind of diluted over the past as long as I can remember, especially in the last 20 years. It's really been diluted.
Well, they're starting to feminize it. They're concerned about feelings and safe spaces. And I'm thinking, you want soldiers to worry about safe spaces? You need about their emotional vulnerabilities. Why are you not building the soldiers up? Because there's not going to be time for that if we found ourselves in a war. Oh, yeah, it's so short-sighted.
War is the exact opposite of a safe space. It's you can die in a battlefield. That is the farthest away from safe space that you can have. So the men do have to be toughened up. And that's also another thing that the left really wants to put an emphasis saying that, oh, there was shield maidens all over the place. No, there were shield maidens, but they were few and far between because the women have to stay at home and defend their land, for one, and two, raise the children. Because if the woman went off with her husband to war, they can both die. And then their children, as a result, they could die as well. Or, you know, the enemy or another enemy, you know, not the one that they're fighting, but somebody else could come in and take their land. So the women did have to... There's nothing wrong with being a woman. There's nothing wrong with being a mother. There's nothing wrong with being this, you know, a stay-at-home mom, because you are defending something that is worth defending. That's what the men fight for, is for their women. You know, on the, what would I call it? The working class, you know, middle class, lower class, not in the upper classes where it's just they're moving the lower classes around like chess pieces, but yeah, men they fight for the women. That's how it's been.
And so they should. I mean, that's kind of the natural order. And as I said to you earlier, which I'm about to get us into big trouble because I'm going to say my thing. Biology is reality. And that means that we're going to need to, in order to be truly effective life, act in accordance with that biology. And, you know, there are times when we do have to rise to the occasion. Like you mentioned, that if the men were all off to war, the women need to take on the responsibility of defense as well as raising the children and keeping the business going and all that good stuff, which, you know, we can, and no doubt will do again in the future. But, oh gosh, where was it going? Okay, getting back on track. But in addition to all of that, we also need to kind of have a little bit of a reality check. This whole warrior woman, she was everywhere all the time. You know, first of all, that's going to be the exception, not the rule. It's going to be the very rare person indeed who that's going to be their life. Not to say that there aren't real life equivalents of Brienne of Tarth. There are, and they are rock stars, and I respect them for that. But for most women, we're smaller than men. We are physically weaker than men. We have less muscular endurance and skeletal density than what men have. So that means that our business and life is going to be a little bit different from theirs on average, and that's okay. And I would like to see that become okay again, because the way we're
Right.
going now, I mean, nothing. Because, and here's another thing that is sort of on the same topic but veers us off slightly differently, is that the way men have been encouraged to feminize themselves, and I'm not even talking about the whole transgender thing, but they're meant to be opening up their feelings, but they're meant to be opening up in their feelings in a more feminine way. They're supposed to be more sensitive in a feminine way, not expressing emotions or sensitivity in a masculine way. Women want it in a feminine way, and women are then wanting to assert themselves in a masculine way. And I don't think anyone's happier. I mean, could we talk for a minute about how all of these ideologies that pat themselves on the back for how progressive and modern they are, they're not resulting in human happiness?
Right. Yeah. Well, let me just add another point about what you said about if there's any women watching this and they feel offended by basic biology. Well, there was an invention that came along a couple hundred years ago that has developed that will bridge the gap between men and women, although women should. Yes, the pew-pews. The pew-pews are women's rights. Pew-pews are good.
Yes, they
Well,
are.
yes, that bridges the gap between men and women, although men usually, in my case, tend to be better shots anyway. But I have a stigmatism, so that's my own handicap.
I'm a flincher. My husband is helping me work on this, but the progress is slow. He said if it really came down to it, he's just going to give me one of those spray and pray things. He says you'll get somebody. You'll never be a sharpshooter, darling, but it'll be okay.
There's always dogs as well. Big dog, big growl.
Mhm.
Yeah, nobody's gonna want to mess with you. But
Absolutely.
yes, as you were saying about where the society has brought the two genders into this kind of they're trying to make us equal, but then they've completely thrown off the natural equilibrium of things, especially where men are concerned, where men are encouraged to be weak. There's no other way to put it. They've introduced so many foods into our diets that are detrimental to men, like a lot of soybeans. Soy just destroys testosterone, and men need that testosterone not only to be macho men, but for their overall health. Testosterone is so important, just like estrogen is so important for women's overall health. We're able to produce calcium in our bones, and that's why when women hit menopause, that a lot of women go through osteoporosis, and this encouragement to get hysterectomies is actually really dangerous for a woman's overall health. And it scared the crap out of me when I had my son and they said, oh, you hemorrhaged when we gave you a C-section. We almost had to give you a hysterectomy. And I was, that scares me because I know what happens when you get a hysterectomy when your body isn't ready yet. And I would be, my bones would be suffering. But thankfully that didn't happen. But yes, the movement towards getting men more feminized has been very detrimental to them. Women being more masculine has been very detrimental to them. Although we see within our past, I believe these modern pagans, modern Wiccans on the left have been misled to think that some of our gods and goddesses kind of reflect this new progressivism, which in fact they really don't.
Yeah. Oh, you hit on one of the points that absolutely makes me cringe. It just amazes me, because I'm the last person in the world to say that the gods have just remained static, because I don't believe that, because they've had goodness knows what kinds of experiences that we just don't have recorded in the lore. Fair enough, and they're much older than us, so of course as you age you acquire more experiences. But to say they forget their innate natures, or that they have so lost their own sense of self that they now find themselves perfectly lining up with whatever Marxist drivel happens to come out of a leftist mouth. I'm sorry. Really? I mean, What kills me is that, okay, I get human beings not looking at our own past history and seeing how their ideologies had absolutely horrific and tragic consequences, but the gods are kind of bigger than us, and they're wiser than us, and they're much smarter, and they're much better at connecting cause with effect. I mean, they're the ones who taught that to us. So this idea that they could not see this horrible ideology that is anti-nature, anti-human, anti-everything, except for the power of the state, and that they'd be on board with that, I don't think so. I mean,
No.
it just amazes me how people fool themselves like that.
Right. Yeah, and that kind of brings me to the point of the different aspects of the gods and goddesses. Within Wicca, we see the masculine, the male god, being associated with the sun, and the feminine goddess being associated with the moon. That's good for Wicca, and that's also good for Greek and Roman worshippers. But if these leftists are looking for something alternative, they can look to the Egyptian or the Norse pantheon, and you're more familiar with Celtic than I am. But as far as moon goddesses in the Egyptian, really wasn't the thing. It was more moon gods. So if they're looking to get out of these gender stereotypes, okay, there's a ways and means of doing that, but you have to understand, the moon was seen as, the left eye of Horus, where his right eye was the sun, and the same with Odin, where his right eye was the moon and his left eye was the sun. And the moon was viewed as masculine by the Egyptians, with the god Khonsu and Thoth. But then sun was viewed as both feminine and masculine to the Egyptians, with Ra, Sekhmet, Bast, Isis, Hathor, and they all have this connection with the sun. Well, if you think of the environment of Egypt, the sun is all overwhelming and powerful because you're in the desert. It's always there. But for, say, the Norse, in the cold, white north, they must have viewed the sun as feminine because it provided this life energy, this fertility, and it thawed out the cold ice. So they had Sol or Suna, and the Norse, the moon god, it was Mani. And I was also looking into Hinduism, and apparently it's the same thing where
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have a moon god, but they have a solar goddess and a solar god. But in Hinduism, they have Soma, the moon god, or Chanda, also a lunar deity. So, if they're looking for an outlet, because they don't agree with the gender roles, there's places for that, but then you have to understand where those it was not necessarily so much the gender roles as the energy roles. Feminism, or not feminism, but the feminine aspects are associated with growth, fertility, and the male aspects are more associated with wisdom, although there's wisdom within femininity as well. But there's a lot of Thoth, the Egyptian example. You could see him in Mercury, not only the planet but the god. But then you also see connections to Thoth, to Odin, and Odin is also linked to Mercury, and as Freya Aswin also connects him to Uranus, to that energy.
I can definitely see that. Yeah. Well, and reversing just a little bit to what you said about the Norse associating the sun with the feminine, in a way that makes perfect psychological sense because, as you said, this is the cold white north. So when the men came home, what were they coming home to? Hopefully they're home with a good fire going, a pot of something cooking, and a woman waiting with open arms. So everything that is warm and glowing and good, they always associated with that glowing orb. So that makes absolute perfect psychological sense. And the only other thing I would really say is that if someone has such hostility towards what we would consider traditional gender roles, which, again, there were gender roles within ancient paganism. This is not something the Christians trumped up. Things arranged themselves the way they did for necessary reasons. The division of labor was, very understandable when you look at it in context. But if someone does feel that hostility, they might benefit from examining why. Is that really coming from something from within them? Is it the indoctrination that they have received? Is it their dissatisfaction with the world that it's the reality of that world is not conforming with their preconceptions? If someone is willing enough to be that honest with themselves, I think that could be a very fruitful thing for them to meditate on. But I admit that kind of mental turnaround is neither easy nor fun and not quick.
No, yeah, like I said, they can always look at their natal charts to figure out why they feel that way, or they can, in addition to looking at themselves and, okay, why do I feel this way about femininity? Why do I feel about this way about masculinity? Not only look at themselves, but look at their parents. What was the example that they put forth? Were they absent? Were they cruel? Should you it's really a self-help, self-meditation to understand why you feel this way about men. Why do you feel this way about women? Look into yourself. It sounds kind of hokey, but that's really what needs to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And if someone's willing to go that far, maybe they need to start opening themselves up to the perspective of our pagan brothers. When I was doing the preparation for this, I was actually trying to find some video channels, articles, whatever I could find from pagan men having their own say. And I did find two examples. One called himself the Blue Sage, the animated pagan witch. He had a video titled Gender Roles in Paganism. It was published October 27th, 2016. So these are not recent thoughts of his. So I don't want to misrepresent him in case he has changed his mind for whatever reason. But he was actually complaining. He said that pagan men are treated oftentimes as being lesser in paganism. And even saying as magical practitioners, he said, okay, if we want to kind of agree that we'll use witch as a primarily feminine word, let's adopt the word wizard for men, but let's acknowledge that they are still knowledgeable, powerful practitioners, which that's only common sense, and that's actually what attracted me to Wicca, because I was looking at the base principles, not the lunatics associated with it. And I thought, the balance of the masculine and the feminine, that's just what I need. I'm coming out of Christianity, so that balance, and that'll be good. And I'll have a healthier view towards masculine deity. And that has been my journey. But for so many people, I think that isn't. But he also said that he thinks that the backlash against Christianity, which we have to admit, for a lot of people, that's how they start their pagan journey. It isn't really because they're in love with the gods. It's because they're rebelling. But his point is that it was overriding common sense. And I thought, isn't that just the truth? I mean, all the anti-male bias that we have in our own circles, it is absolutely that rejection of common sense and a rejection of actually core pagan principles. Show me the pantheon that doesn't have masculine gods.
Right.
And apart from Dianic Wicca, show me the form of Wicca that is not at least acknowledging the gods' importance in some fashion. I mean, just these are core. You take that away, you have destroyed the religion and you've turned it into something else.
Right.
I mean, it's tragic.
Yeah, it brings me back to that person's view on males in Wicca and paganism as them being lesser. We used to have a circle, which we did out of our store that we had a long time ago. And we had this couple with their kids come up. And I was talking about the principles of magic, science, and art causing change to occur in conformity with will. And then this woman turns around to her little boy and says, yes, men can do magic, but women are so much more powerful. And I was like, I didn't say anything at the time, but I was screaming in Odin, screaming in Toth. What are you doing? Are you really that ignorant to, or have you really been indoctrinated? I think it was a little bit of both, because you can't tell men that they are less than women. We are equal, but we are equal in different ways. We balance each other.
Yeah, I mean, we're not interchangeable. I mean, if people could get past the idea that equality means interchangeability, I think that would break down a lot of barriers right there. But people just got it stuck in their damn heads. Oh,
Right.
I did find one other video from one of our pagan brothers who isn't completely psychologically castrated. I did not get the name of his channel, which I'm sorry. I'd only had one cup of tea this morning when I was writing down my notes. That's my excuse. Okay, that's my explanation. I do remember that he was actually a Slavic pagan. I think he was in Russia, somewhere over in Eastern Europe. But he was talking about his own personal views about the roles that women have traditionally held in paganism, and he really focused on that aspect of the importance of the mother, of maintaining and upholding traditions, of being teachers, making sure the next generation knows what's up and what's going on and why, and really kind of serving as that spiritual center within the household and taking on that responsibility. He also mentioned a little bit about how oftentimes women were the ones who essentially kept the financial books, and about made sure that the girls were learning very practical skills. So after they were, came of age and had their initiation rituals in the tribe, that they could go on to marry and be good wives. And he was speaking of this with such respect and such honor. And I thought, I wish his channel had more views. I wish I could remember his name. I feel very guilty now. But I just wish that message, because
the comment. Yeah, I'm interested.
I mean, he was speaking with such reverence, and he was saying, and then of course, men had their role to play. They were going out and fighting in wars, they were doing the hunting, they were doing the hard manual labor, but they were also setting the example for the boys of how to become men, how to provide, how to push back and push through hardship, of how to actually deal with and treat women, because the European pagan tribes, I mean, while I wouldn't say that the women enjoyed the same legal rights that you and I today enjoy, still, when you compare to other areas of the world, even in the Greco-Roman world, it was a lot better in a lot of ways. I mean, they had, a little bit more freedom, a little bit more autonomy than what you would have expected for the time period. So that tells me that something was going right, that women weren't just, drug around by their hair from hither and thither and not having any choice in anything. And I think that's also the thing about femininity that people don't appreciate, that is even in the traditional interpretations of it, women are still a formidable force to be reckoned with. And especially if we have a domain that is ours, I think that is a place where we can assert ourselves. And I don't know about you, but nothing makes me more mental than when my husband decides he's going to help me around the house. I'm like, no, my way is better. And this is my job, and you're hideously in the way. So go do whatever stuff you're doing. I don't care what you're doing, but keep out of my purview. I have my way of doing things, and I like it that way. And to his credit, he does, but it's going to take a lot to kind of change the tide on this, which I guess is, since we're almost at an hour, where I want to go to next. We know that the terrible places all of these trends can go. What do you think would be some seeds we could plant and some actions we could exemplify that would show a better way of doing things?
Yeah, just pretty much understanding that women and men, we balance each other out. We don't have to be complete equals in everything that we do, but we bring balance to each other. And I understand in this financial situation where both men and women, we have to work, that the opportunity to not do that or to do away with that is gone, unfortunately, within the past 100 years. But allowing women, encouraging them to be more feminine, and encouraging, if they want to have some sort of a masculine qualities, that there is feminine ways to do that. Hunting is one of those things. You can look at all the gods and goddesses associated with hunting. Diana, Artemis, Paquette, Scotty, all these goddesses are associated with the hunt. They can, get that energy out that way, but then also understand that there is something in being a mother that is also very fulfilling, where you are a protector. You're the mama bear, literally. And that's why when people first encounter the goddess Isis, that they're intimidated. They're expecting a nice feminine energy, but when I've worked with her before, she is formidable. She's actually kind of frightening to approach, because she's a mother goddess, but her name is also Isis, Great of Heka, Great of Magic. She poisoned Ra and kind of held him hostage until she got his magic from him to release the poison of the snake that bit him. So there's ways and means a woman can be powerful, but it's just in different ways than a man. Our strength isn't in the physical, but it's in the mental. It's in the magical. Although men also can be magically powerful. That's not what I'm saying, but we just have different strengths where we can impress others. I think that's where women these days have gone off the rails, is that they want to be physically strong or have more masculine appearing qualities, when we can impress men in our own way and in the classical way as well, wooing them with our feminine wiles and doing the flip thing with our hair and crap like that.
Oh, isn't that the truth? We do the hair thing, don't we? I was rewatching a cartoon series, and I noticed one of the female characters, when a certain male character was around, she did, kind of was messing with the hair. And I pointed that out to my bestie, and I said, you see, there were clues that they were intended to be the pair. And he's like, I don't think that. You're reading too much into it. I'm like, fine, whatever. And anytime you feel like listening to feminine intuition, it's fine with me. I guess that's not this day, but
right.
I think one thing that I think women in particular would benefit from is reward the behavior you would like to see more of. So when the men in your life, or men just in your circle, are exhibiting their own natural masculine tendencies, reward that. Cooperate with that, encourage it. And when men are, acting more feminine and they're being weak, or they're being that weird kind of needy, or they're being kind of on the flip side, this really bombastic parody of masculinity, don't reward that. I mean, you don't necessarily have to, whack them about the head, but you just don't deal with them. I'm not going to give you my attention. It is amazing the effect of removing our attention, of how that can sometimes have on them, especially if they happen to be craving our approval. We have the power to really change the dynamic here, and because feminism is essentially what really messed things up, I kind of feel like the onus is on us to do what we can to correct the situation. I'm not sure that men can really do anything beyond. I mean, I think they can kind of toughen themselves up psychologically, act in the way that they know they instinctively should. I think they can do that, but that in of itself is not going to be enough to change things. It is going to have to come from, I suppose, women counseling each other and saying, is it time to maybe rethink our strategy? Because everyone seems to be divorced and miserable and man-hating, and that's just not working out for anybody. So, yeah, we got lots of work to do.
Yeah, definitely. Look at the whole MGTOW movement, the men going their own way, which was a response to decades of feminism. And I was made aware of that a couple of years ago, just watching a couple of those MGTOW videos, and how men were reacting to how women were behaving. And I just said to myself, women need to learn how to be better women. We achieved this feminism mentality, but then we didn't pull each other aside and say, well, let's decide how to be better women, as there's this term called gentlemen. We didn't learn how to be gentle women. We didn't learn how to be ladies. No, a lot of women that are not aware, or they're just going with the flow, they've become less than ladies. And it's really a shame where women used to have a lot more power within our society, just even 100 years ago, in terms of what men would be willing to do for them. And the whole MGTOW movement is men just saying, no, we're not going to hold open the doors for you anymore. We're not going to pull out the chairs. We're not going to work for you. We're not going to give you money. We're tired of your behavior, because your behavior isn't worthy of what we can provide.
And worse than that, it's become abusive.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how else to describe it, is that women have been trained to be very abusive towards men and not even realize that they're doing it. Right. I mean, our ability, our psychological capabilities to figure out how people function, everything out, it has been absolutely weaponized. And, and I have so much sympathy for MGTOW, because I understand why they felt driven to go this way. I mean, it's not like I can blame them. It's not like I can say, oh, no, women in general aren't like that. I'm like, oh, dude, I know these bitches. A lot of them are exactly as awful as you say, and I cannot defend them, and I won't defend them. But At the same time, MGTOW, I think it's good for making the statement, but obviously it's not the solution to our problems. And we're going to have to figure out. Oh, go on.
Yeah, they call the women that are aware of the either MGTOW, or they're not like all the women that MGTOW is complaining about. They call them no-alts, which means not all women are like that.
Oh.
So, I've been trying to be a no-alt, and it sounds like you have been too. So yeah, it's.
I mean, we can but try. I mean, it's impossible to say that, oh, I've been in this particular water my whole life and I just didn't absorb any of it. I don't think that's an honest thing to claim. But a person can say, if I see where things have gone off the rails, and I'm trying to do better. And also, I think if we do start re-embracing our femininity and how to act like ladies, because I mean, even in ancient pagan times, there was concept of ladies and role models of femininity and what that meant and what expressions of feminine power really were. There was all of that. It's not like we have to go outside of our religion to get inspiration for it. But as we do more of that, I think it will help inspire men to, they see their best qualities and they don't see us as someone who's going to automatically hurt them. Right. Because I do see them as, essentially psychologically battered. We didn't have to beat them up with our fists. We just beat them up mentally. Yeah. And these are the consequences.
Yeah, the brain damage that they've suffered, that they've went through, is something that, unfortunately, other women are responsible for. And the ones that want to do better, the women that want to do better, they have to repair that damage that another woman put there. And it's becoming more and more frequent where, I used to say, men cause a lot of psychological damage in women too, but it's just like more and more women are doing these horrible things to men, and they think that they're justified because they have bad female role models that they think it's okay to go flirt with guys on Facebook or go befriend their ex-boyfriends, which is
that never works out well. Just tossing that out there.
And it's just ridiculous. Where I have friends that will befriend their old ex-boyfriends on Facebook, and they'll still talk to them, but then they have a new boyfriend, and they're wondering why the new boyfriend is upset with them that they're talking to their old boyfriend. Well, why do you think that is? Right.
Cause and effect. I mean, if we could remember what that is, I mean, wouldn't that be a great step forward?
Right.
Oh, oh, I swear. I mean, we're crazy. I will admit it. I think as women, we are the embodiment of chaos energy. That's just the way that it is, but we can learn to use it for good and not evil.
Right. That's why, men are focused on, long-term projects, because they're builders. Where women, we're more scatterbrained, and that's for a reason, is to take care of children who are scattered themselves. We gotta go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. We gotta multitask. Where men are not as good multitaskers because they're more focused on one thing at a time because they can be. We gotta chase around kids and animals. Look at this one.
Hello, puppy. I love it when the animals join the show. That is fantastic. Well, and
This
also,
is masculine energy right here.
there we go. He knew we were talking about him and praising him. And it's not just the chasing after children, which, absolutely right. I mean, I don't have children of my own, but I have dated men with children, so I've gotten a teensy tiny taste, and holy cow, it's a good thing that wiring is built in. But even after you get your kids grown, well, then suddenly you have your parents, and they're going into, kind of these kooky different directions and making decisions that you wouldn't have expected of someone of their age.
Right.
My husband and I, we were watching Jeff Foxworthy special lately, and he said that, sooner did he get his girls out of the house than he felt like he and his wife started raising their parents, and they must have passed each other in the drive because he's like, "What are you doing? You're supposed to be the wise old man. What you're doing doesn't make sense." But his wife copes with it, and because that's what nature made us to do. I mean, and I do think more and more that people aren't so much at war, with men or that patriarchy. I mean, good grief, if we had a freaking patriarchy, I could have wielded so much power as a young woman. It would be unbelievable. So I'm kind of in favor of it. But
Yeah.
I think what people are at war with is actually nature itself. And that's what we need to come to peace with it. But especially as pagans, I think we really have a role in setting the example here, because we keep saying, we're a nature-based religion. Well, let's start putting some deeds to those words.
Right, exactly. Yes, yeah. My patriarchy, my nature-based religion.
Patriarchy and matriarchy, these things, it doesn't have to be one or the other. There's a functional place for coexistence of the two. It's just depending upon whose strengths and what arena we're talking about, and this is an okay thing. And I hopefully that our conversation, the fact that we're willing to say these things out loud to the world, to whoever happens to stumble upon this video, I hope that makes other people feel brave, and I hope it makes them think that, okay, maybe it is okay. Maybe nature did get it right. Maybe I should, if I have serious questions, I should be consulting various goddesses and getting their input. Maybe they could help me with my attitude adjustment or something of that nature. Oh, but that is what I've got, ma'am. Any final concluding thoughts for our people?
No, or maybe just to add to it, consulting goddesses, or, if you're a woman, consulting gods, or, just have a severe wake-up call and watch a MGTOW video. That'll just open your eyes, and you're like, oh my gosh, not look at it as a from a perspective of, oh, these men are misogynistic. No, look at it as this is the complaint department.
Yeah. These men are hurt. They are hurting.
Yes, it's the complaint department. Treat these complaints as gifts and ways to improve. And if you're doing any of these things, stop.
Yeah. Oh, I know it's not fashionable for women to accept criticism these days, but we've got to get a healthier, more balanced relationship with that. We have such a feminized society, and we don't even see it, and women think that we need more of that. I'm like, no, the answer is to get back into freaking balance. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll turn it over to the audience. Let us know what you think in the comments section. I'm going to be uploading this on Thursday, so if you're watching with us on Thursday, thank you for joining with us. I hope you've been hanging out with me in the comment section. I always appreciate it when people do that. I like having those live real-time reactions. One of these days, I will learn how to live stream. It's not today, but that day is rapidly approaching. I have enough people nagging me to do it, so that will be coming. But until then, thank you, audience, for joining me. Thank you, Sigrid, for coming on with me,
Yep.
and we'll see everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.